The views and opinions expressed in this program are not meant to alarm anyone, but merely start an intelligent discussion about an interesting phenomenon, the possibility that an intelligent alien life form does exist and is actively making contact with the Earth.
My career, in quotes, began in World War II, and I did see the ever-famous so-called Foo Fighters, spelled F-O-O. Don't ask me how the thing was derived, because that was questionable in the beginning. But anyway, the unexplained, unidentified, as they referred to them often, were observed in both the European theater, the complete Asiatic theater, clear up into India and Burma, all over the world. It was worldwide, which happened suddenly.
Right.
I've seen Freedom of Information Act papers confirming one Foo Fighter incident over the biggest raid by the American bombers in World War II over Schweinfurt, which was ball bearing works, which was critical to the German war machine. Right. Well, those that I observed, three of them. I was looking out the porthole of the C-46, which I was aboard. There were 12 other men with me. And I saw these three self-luminous objects coming out of a cloud bank toward the aircraft. Somewhere along the line, they made an oblique turn. I can't recall it exactly, because it all happened so fast. They were very brilliant. They paced the aircraft briefly. Our plane dropped, and I can only guess how far we dropped, 50 to 75 feet during the instance of their nearness. And then they withdrew suddenly from the aircraft. The plane corrected its flight pattern, and we landed safely in Iwo. Nobody to talk to, because everything was rush, hush, hush. On to the next move, on another plane into Atsugi the following day, and that's what I observed. Now, let me predicate that too. When I was in 5th Air Force Unit Intelligence, and I had sometimes access to certain papers that came through that were marked anywhere from restricted, confidential to secret. I don't remember the classification of this, oddly, because it was too long ago, and there was no reason at the time to remember that. But I remember a memorandum coming through referring to the concern about the unidentifieds, sometimes called boobies, and in parents they had Foo Fighters. Concern about the fact that they outmaneuvered our aircraft, and that they were being investigated, looked into, period, but there were no conclusions. See, the first year I got back, none of this impressed me. I mean, I was more interested in seeing my old war buddies and drinking beer, really, than the old times.
So, yeah.
One thing that impresses me about all of this, all the observations, whomever is involved, is the way they describe the eyes. Practically everyone who was within a reasonable distance of the alien body was impressed mostly by the power of those eyes. The darkness, the sinister look, the bigness. Right. Even in death, they looked like they were alive.
Welcome to UFO Update Live. My name is Jerry Black. I'd like to introduce our panel now of UFO researchers and investigators. To my right is my wife, Peggy Black. She's a member of the Center for UFO Studies and also is the president of the only UFO support group here in the tri-state area. To my far left is Brian Skow. Brian is working towards a degree in physics. Next to him is Terry Endres. Terry Endres is a writing instructor and is also the editor of our newsletter. Following Terry, of course, here is Pat Packard. He's Assistant State Director for the Mutual UFO Network and also President of ASK, Associates for Scientific Knowledge. Welcome, panel.
Thank you, Terry.
It's with a great deal of silence that I have to report that Leonard Stringfield passed away. Leonard was a good friend for over 20 years. He passed away on December 18th, 1994. Leonard was a researcher and investigator for almost 45 years. he was dedicated to finding out the answer to the UFO phenomenon. He was a professional in every way. He worked for Du Bois Chemical. He retired from Du Bois Chemical after 30 years of service as Director of Public Relations. He also served our country in World War II as a combat officer. He was in combat for 3 years. He left the service as an intelligence officer. He was a professional in every aspect of the word. And it's with great sorrow that I have to report his passing. Peggy, do you have some thoughts on Leonard, because you met Leonard at the 1978 symposium and also an investigation in Kentucky?
I would like to say a word about Leonard the man. I remember Leonard as a very likable, personable, highly intelligent man that was above reproach. I first had the pleasure to meet Leonard back in 1976 when Jerry invited him to join us in the investigation of the Casey County abduction case. Jerry, Leonard, Jim Miller, and myself drove several times during '76 down to Casey County. As I sit here, I can clearly remember Len always smoking his pipe and tugging at his beard as he pondered over his thoughts. One of the things I remember also about him was after we had done a TV show back in '78 after the Dayton Symposium, Leonard told Jerry and I, "You can handle the lights in the sky and the abductions. I'm going to devote full time to my crash retrieval." And I'm just going to really miss Leonard. I found him to be a very likable, very warm, wonderful person.
Thank you, Peggy. Brian, your thoughts on Leonard?
Well, I think Len brought a much-needed degree of integrity to ufology. He was well respected by his peers as well as government officials. And this document here from 1978 from the Department of State is a document concerning a UN resolution to start a UFO department within the United Nations. And Len is often quoted throughout this document from Situation Red and from some of his other works. And he was just well respected. He even gave some of his reports to the Air Defense Command back in the 1950s just to show you that the government really thought highly of his word on some of the UFO cases, and they really respected the work that he was doing. And in fact, even after Blue Book was closed, Len was still in contact with a lot of the government officials, and speaking of UFO cases. And I just think that Len was a very well-respected researcher, and we need a lot more researchers like him, and it's too bad to see him go.
Very well said, Brian. Terry, your thoughts?
Well, I don't think most of our viewers realize the impact that Leonard had on our field. 20-some years ago, when he decided to devote his attention to the crash retrievals, that was a time when a lot of other investigators just weren't handling it. Too many hoaxes had been, unraveling in front of their eyes, and crash retrievals became persona non grata, a hot potato. People would just stay away from them. It was just too risky, too embarrassing if another hoax developed out of an investigation. But Len kept digging at it because he had good information from very credible sources. A lot of these were military personnel of high rank. And, of course, Len, with his usual degree of integrity, never divulged a source when they asked for anonymity. And just kept at it, just kept collecting the data until he finally was able to come forward with some of his findings to let us know that possibly the Air Force has been, the government has been collecting crashed saucers for some time, has been involved with this maybe since 1947. His digging, his tenacity also helped locate a couple of the key witnesses to the Roswell crash. And from there, of course, now we have probably that case is the forefront of ufology right now. But I think probably one of the things that indicates that he was maybe close to the truth was during, I believe it was the 1978 symposium. Was it in Dayton, I believe? He was on stage ready to give his lecture on what he had been finding out at that point. And Well, he was asked to leave the stage because a bomb threat was called in. It was taken as a threat against him. And, you know, if someone's serious enough to call in a threat like that, then we have to think that maybe the information Len had was worth hearing. So we're really going to miss him, because I don't know if there's anybody else that's going to hang with gathering that kind of information for as long as he had.
Thank you, Terry. Pat, this clip we had at the beginning of the program tonight, you interviewed Leonard Stringfield, and you had an opportunity for the last 2 or 3 years to know the man. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, there's a lot you can say about Leonard. We touched on some of the things. He was certainly there from the beginning of modern ufology, if you want to term it that way, from the Foo Fighters, organized one of the first groups in the country, was a spotter for the Civil Defense, worked on the Condon Committee, he worked on a committee with the United Nations, and on and on and on. I mean, you just can go on about the history of him forever. But I think one of the keys with Leonard, or two probably, one is the company he kept. You're talking about a man that was with Admiral Hilgen Trotter, I hope that's how you say his name, first CIA director. He had people that were astronauts, heads of state, you name it. Leonard was friends with them. But I think in the final analysis, it was the people in the area that really didn't have a whole lot of status, people like me or the rest of us who are out there digging to try and find something out. Leonard always had time for whoever it was to talk to you, to help you out, to give you a kind word or a word of direction. And there are so very few people with the character and class he had as a human being. And really, to me, that's the essence of Leonard Stringfield. He was just a cut above the rest of us in terms of class. And I think it'll be a long time before we see someone of that caliber again. I personally have never met anyone that I respected as much.
I agree. It's a shame that the entire UFO community, though, didn't give him the respect when he was alive that he really deserved. With all the hype, with all the new TV shows, all the tabloid-type shows, everyone was gung-ho to get their self on TV, to get their story on TV, not worrying about how credible the story was. And Leonard wasn't that way. Until the end, he was very low-key. Unless he had a good story, he didn't make up one. He didn't take a story that had not been yet investigated and run with it just for the sake of trying to please the media. I remember about 5 years ago, I talked to a gentleman on the phone. We were talking about Leonard, and he said to me, he says, I can tell you this about Leonard Stringfield. When UFO researchers get together to rap, if they haven't mentioned Leonard Stringfield's name within the first 5 minutes, they're not talking serious UFOs. And that stuck with me because it's very true. I mean, you have to bring the man's name up when you're discussing UFOs because he was so prominent. I can remember also, and maybe you gentlemen can tell our audience about this, when he was actually put in touch with an Air Force pilot who was chasing a UFO right at that moment. The government, because he had been working with them for 2 or 3 years as a consultant, he was actually put in touch with, on the telephone, with an Air Force pilot chasing a UFO at that time. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Anyone here? Terry, you?
I believe that was while he was...
in 1956, 57.
Yeah, when he was...
Air Defense?
Yeah, he was acting as... well, actually, because Len was getting more reports called to him than the Air Force was receiving in Wright-Patterson, or anywhere for that matter, they hooked up with Len. And they said, well, look, you're having such good luck collecting these reports, we're going to put a phone line directly to the Air Defense Command filter in Columbus, Ohio, and you fill us in on what's going on. And of course, it worked both ways because they were able then to patch him in with that pilot while this pilot was, I guess, giving chase to a UFO. So it's a fascinating story. I mean, not only was it's ironic because the Air Force doesn't usually trust UFO investigators, but here, you know, probably throughout his career, the Air Force recognized him as a solid, you know, individual, a man with integrity, and you know, even went so far as to in a sense, let him join the family for whatever limited amount of time, because he was still consulting with the Air Force into the 70s. And of course, this is well after Project Blue Book has been shut down, well after the University of Colorado issued its report saying that UFOs weren't worth studying. So, you know, it lends some credence to what he's been doing if the Air Force actually paid attention to him.
Yes, I think we're talking here about Leonard as a UFO investigator and researcher for over 45 years, but we can't forget the fact that he was just a human being that was just tremendous. I mean, like you said, he gave of his time to anyone. He probably, by his family, would be more well known as a kind and gentle person that he was, as opposed to a UFO investigator. But of course, here we're talking about that. But you can't overlook that as a man, as a person, he was a tremendous person, besides the UFO situation. I want to, at this time, say that Leonard was survived by a brother, his wife, 3 daughters, and 7 grandchildren. And I'd just like to have this final thing to say about Leonard Stringfield. It is said by many, and I certainly agree, that God is all-knowing. It is also said by many people that when your soul goes to heaven, any question you've ever had on earth will be answered. If that is true, then Leonard Stringfield has finally fulfilled his lifelong dream. And that dream is the truth about the UFO mystery. With that in mind, we know the man was more than worthy of the UFO phenomena. The only question remaining was the UFO phenomena worth of man? Welcome back. I'm very proud at this time to mention the fact that I'm a active member of ASK, the organization that Pat Packard established about 1.5 years ago, Associates for Scientific Knowledge. And I'm very proud at this time to turn it over to Pat Packard and have him introduce, because we've been getting questions from a lot of you people out there. What is the ASK organization? What do they do? What's the purpose? How many members do they have? What is ASK doing at this time? So Pat, I'd like you to introduce some of the investigators and the people you have, and tell the audience what you're doing and what projects are going on.
Well, we've got quite a few projects we do. You know, we bring in speakers, we publish newsletters, we do local investigations, national investigations. We have quite a few people, about a dozen, that are very serious investigators that work on this subject, give their time, effort, and money, because we're a non-profit corporation and we don't take in very much money. But tonight with us we have a few people that don't get on the show very often. They supply information for it and they do other research. A couple of fellows couldn't make it, but with us tonight is Joedy Cook, and Jody's got some areas of expertise that he brought with him to ask, and he's worked on a couple of investigations. And Joedy, you want to tell the people at home what it is that you do and what your interests are and what you do with ASK?
Well, one of the projects I've been working on with ASK is that the large amount of models of UFOs that are out on the market, there's approximately about 40 to 45 models that's out on the market that's easily, be able to be got. And there's about 17 of the models that could be easily be used as a hoax. They could be operational as far as lights, movement, and even sound. A few of us know that they've been a videotape that's been sent out by The Guardian. And I've been looking at the tape, and there's one segment of the tape that shows a really good view of 3 large port windows, on the craft, along with a beacon light on top, a beacon light on the bottom.
Guardian, for the people at home, was the tape that appeared on
Unsolved Mysteries,
a few other shows.
Right.
It was in Canada. And
so
we think it's a hoax, but go ahead.
I believe it is a hoax because I was looking at a model called Jupiter 2, which is from Lost in Space. Mm-hmm. They made a model that's about 6 foot in diameter, and it's easily works. It has beacon lights to it, and I believe that what this individual did was take this model, one of these models, and hoaxed it up. Because I looked at the one section of the tape there and looked at the model, and there's a large similarity between the 2 objects. So hopefully within some further investigation on that, we'll be able to get some more information out. Some other projects and investigations I've been working on is Kentucky case. I'm still working on it. There's a video and 2 eyewitnesses. One's a law enforcement officer, and he highly believes what he saw was not an aircraft, but a unidentified flying object.
That was in southern Kentucky.
Southern
right?
Kentucky. I believe the town was called Lynchfield,
Okay.
Kentucky. Another investigation I've been working on is in Michigan. One was in Lansing that took place about week and a half ago. There's really good footage on that one. I saw it. Shows a very nice shaped object that more or less comes out of the clouds. It's luminous, and it goes back into the cloud. And there's a tape that another law enforcement officer took about a few days prior to that of a real bright object during the day. So there's one case I'm working on that took place in Grayling, Michigan. It was about the mid part of July of 1990, and it took place at Camp Grayling, Michigan, which is an Army Reserve and National Guard training post. And what happened was it was a night fire. It was on a M1 tank range, and about an hour into the exercise, NASA calls range control.
National Guard training exercise, correct?
Correct, National Guard training exercise. NASA calls range control. Range control calls the range and speaks to the range master and tell them that NASA wants all firing to decease. Sure. Okay, and there was some helicopters that were up in the area that were ground also. And the reasoning was that NASA said it was disrupting communications with the shuttle. And I talked with an individual from AT&T that's very in the field of communications, said there's no possible way tank firing or moving objects on the ground could disrupt communications from satellites that's way up. So, which was very, very odd for something like that to happen. And Michigan's a very large area that has a lot of sightings of UFOs. And I spoke with a deputy within that area that said that sightings is like an everyday occurrence in Michigan. And at that particular time, there was UFO sightings on that date, and I believe the date was the 27th or 28th of July. And so what we highly believe is that there was an object that was being tracked by NASA, and it was in the area where there was live fire, and they did not want that object to possibly be hit or be contacted by the helicopters that were up in the air, because when it comes with the military, they'd rather get hardcore full-time troops than a bunch of weekend individuals.
Strictly a theory at this point, though.
It's a theory, but I wrote some letters to the Information Act, and I haven't received anything back to them. So hopefully I'll be receiving information soon.
Okay.
And some further information in the future.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
We got with us too tonight George Clappison. George is an engineer. He is involved. Well, I guess I'll let him tell you what he does, what his interest is, and what he keeps us abreast of. George, it's all yours.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for having me on. I've been exposed to a lot of the high-tech things that are coming out nowadays, and it's surprising just how related to the UFO field this high-tech stuff is. I read a lot of the design journals that are out nowadays,
Right.
and I find that they're coming out with these aircraft called beam riders, and I find that real interesting because some of the scientists that had been working on the magnetic propulsion systems back in the 50s for the government are now applying for patents for some of these saucer-shaped crafts, and I thought that was real interesting, so I started looking into it a little farther. And I found a lot of tie-ins with some of the other areas of the UFO field. Like, for instance, on the black helicopters, they were talking about how they come flying in quiet and you can't hear them. And it's really amazing that right here in the August '94 issue of Machine Design, they talk about putting the hush on helicopters.
Right.
And some of the other investigations that I've been involved in are really interesting. The Bigfoot investigation that was going on in Central Ohio is.
Right. Let me back you up a second here. You're talking about black helicopters, and we did go out. We investigate a little bit of everything. So we got involved in the one world government rumor that was going on here recently. Didn't find any substantiation for that, but we did find that there were a number of people talking about helicopters coming in, making the typical sound, and coming out silently. We filed Freedom of Information Acts, and much to the chagrin of people like Mike McConnell, the FAA has looked into this, and in fact there are helicopters of various colors that are flying around, evidently silently. They are involved, and they have no explanation, the FAA doesn't. We have the documents for where these are coming from. So this sound reduction, this is an investigation we're actually working on right now, and you've been out in the field on it, and we have some pretty good leads. And in fact, the companies that are mentioned in your article this is where the helicopters are flying in now. Isn't that true? I mean, the same. Yeah, it looks that way.
The base is located in central Ohio. I hate to call them bases. They are manufacturing installations, actually. They are contracted through the Department of Defense. It's heavily guarded, one way in, one way out on the ground. In circling this place, you get a lot of stories from the farmers and the people that live in the hills. Of course, there are no hard and fast evidence. There's no photographs, and photographs wouldn't be proof anyway.
One thing else I want to say, we did go out and we looked into the underground detention centers. I think you went with us on that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
And some of the other wild rumors that are spraying around. We couldn't really find any reason to believe any of that. Did you think there was any credence to it? For the people out there that maybe...
As far as the New World Order reports go, right along with Bigfoot and UFOs, any single report taken by itself, no matter how outlandish it is, could be dismissed out of hand by any scientist anywhere. But when the same reports come in time and time again from remotely distant places where the people don't know each other, but the details of their story match, very surprisingly, match very well, it makes you want to take a look at it. A scientist's duty is to look and consider, and that's what we're trying to do with ASK.
Okay, the closing little comment here, though, you're talking about a lot of this is generated, I think, by the literature that comes out of some of these movements. And when we get literature, we get a lot from One World Order and from other people, we find out that people are reading the same things and are telling us the same stories about Russian cars on rails and so forth and so on, but we really can't find any evidence at this point to verify any of that. So.
Yeah, I had heard a report of, I believe it was 10 train loads of 100 cars each with 4 vehicles on each car of Russian vehicles. Now that's quite a lot of military hardware. I think that'd be pretty hard to hide in an underground base, although I don't know how big the military's underground bases are.
Let me just say I have talked to a couple of professors out west that are espousing the one world government and also have some documentation that we're still looking into it, and we don't consider any investigation closed. There have been some patents filed. Is that correct, about UFO propulsion, plasma propulsion? And
it has to do with magnetics and the plasma causes a shock wave on the leading edge of the saucer-shaped craft, which then causes some air movement and draws the vehicle forward. Of course, there's a lot of limitations on payload and speed, but that's at the faster speeds. At the slower speeds, like where it would be landing, these things are guided by microwave beams from ground stations.
And this is current technology now, and we're not talking about, I mean, these are things people are writing about, working on in technical magazines, filing patents on. This is not
this is information that I've come across in technical journals. I haven't received anything from the Freedom of Information Act. This is all in public domain.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to say was what you were saying about the contractors that are working on some of these government projects with some of these crafts. Interesting enough, like we said, that these contractors are out at the spot where George and I had gone to take a look to see if anything is going on, and I don't think we can say that some of these theories, I don't think we really have proof of them, but there are some interesting things that are going on there. And also interesting, you were speaking about the saucer-shaped craft, that the beam rider or whatever it's called. It's also being developed at a base not too far from the area where there's been some reports. So that in itself, even though it might be man-made, I think it's pretty interesting.
Well, here, throw a little curveball at you, George. What about the carbon lasers? I know you and Brian have done a little looking into the fact some of these helicopters are shooting down beams, and the carbon dioxide laser is in the infrared, in other words, invisible. But I know you've come up with some technical information, the two of you, that says that they are combining these two, and people are reporting a green beam being shot down to the ground, and in fact, that's a combination of the two lasers. There are two carbon dioxide lasers, and it turns the beam green. So as we look into these things, we do turn up some justification or some reasons to believe it may be going on, you know.
Right.
So it's interesting when you dig beneath the surface. So, all right, George. Well, thank you very much. Next up, we got Kenny Young. Now, before I talk to Kenny, I just want to say we have a couple people didn't make it tonight. One fellow's in charge of our Dale Farmer's in charge of computers and computer bulletin boards and computer investigations. He's looking into Hoagland's moon shot business, whatever you want to call it, latest moon base. Hoagland claims there's some monuments on the moon, and Dale's going through the photographs that are online, trying to correlate them with some photos we got from NASA, slides and movies, etc. And we're going to do some analysis on that. But Kenny's been out in the field looking at some classic UFO cases here. Kenny, you want to tell us what you've been up to? And
all right. Well, Pat, basically what has happened is I've been able to obtain through you a lady by the name of Barb Bergfeld, who has submitted a videotape which seems to show some unidentified objects flying around over Owensville. And so in the process of making this piece that we're about to see very shortly, we asked a fellow investigator, Charles Stewart, to look at the tape. He charted several unusual events that he believes that might have happened on this tape. And so we took it on the basis of that and explored several of the events that might have happened, and we were able to maybe produce a piece that would be a little bit compelling, something to watch and to kind of explore, not necessarily to render any judgments on at this point.
Well, Jerry had a computer enhanced too, we might say, before we go into it, and that really didn't tell us anything, but we get films of lights in the sky pretty regularly.
Oh yeah,
several times.
That's something that we do get regular, and a tape like this, there's not a whole lot we can say about it.
Well, we'll show this. You want to show the people what type of stuff we get all the time here, and roll the tape?
Might as well roll the tape.
All right.
Oh, brother.
This is
pressure.
A recent sighting of an unidentified flying object in the night skies over the Warren Correctional Institute was witnessed by 11 people, including guards at the scene. The Ohio State Patrol received calls about flashing red lights which hovered silently over the area. Recently, on Interstate 275 near the Mount Healthy exit, 2 women nearly drove off the highway after witnessing a luminous, saucer-shaped craft, which disappeared in a thick fog. And just weeks ago in Mariemont, a bullet-shaped object was reported hovering for a lengthy period of time before zipping away into the night skies. Owensville, Ohio, a small town outside the 275 Beltway around Cincinnati, and most recently, the focal point of some pretty strange events.
I got up out of bed and I came out to the living room, and my son, he's 22, was out here on telephone, and I asked him if he knew what the sounds were. He said no, so I opened up the door to look outside, and there were so many intense lights that it was something. So I started yelling, "Oh my God, where's my camera?" I videotaped the lights going across and over top of the field across the street. They were just on the other side of the dumpster here. They were very low. Some of them were coming in one direction and would stop and go back in the opposite direction. Some of them would stop in midair, and there would be like 2 of them at a time over top of each other, and they would separate and go in opposite directions.
This is the video Barb recorded on November the 10th, 1994.
Oh boy, he is lit up. Let's turn the light out and watch him. He's a lot better.
Well, now, there was one in there that I didn't notice until after I replayed the videotape, where there was one sitting in the sky like this, and another one just come up like that, and they sat there like that, and then they went in opposite directions.
Ooh, boy, you're bright now.
This object is suspicious looking. Is it an airplane? Barb says no.
So I'm very, very used to airplanes. I know the difference between the airplanes and helicopters and gyrocopters. I know the difference in all of them. I've even flown quite a few planes myself.
Boy, you're bright now.
In addition to this weird-looking object, Barb also recorded videotape of an actual airplane traveling overhead. Comparing this video with the one of the object that Barb says is weird gives us the impression that the aircraft engine noise from the plane can be heard very clearly, and the unidentified object seems to make no sound at all.
Ooh, boy, you're bright now.
November 10th was a strange night in Owensville. Along with Barb and her videotape, there were quite a few others who told of eerie glowing lights that zipped about on that rainy night. Some did not want to appear on camera. One resident, Larry Moore, says he does not know Barb and has no knowledge of her videotape, but he saw something that he could not identify.
Okay, what I seen was a light coming through the trees, and it was coming at a pretty rapid speed, between 50 and 60 miles an hour. And the light was unusual to be as low as it was. And it was kind of eerie looking, you know, just seeing it like that. But you know it wasn't a plane that low or something that low like that. It's something I've never seen before. But when it came so fast like that, it just suddenly stopped. And it was about like 30 foot up above the trees. And it was just a big bright light, like it had some kind of a glow to it. But I couldn't figure out what it was.
As I was standing there watching the lights, all of a sudden I noticed that there was a sheriff right there in the front of my house.
Oh boy, he's speeding up now. Did you see him? You saw it right here. Listen to him. I bet somebody called.
There was a very intense light on the other, behind the dumpster. The sheriff must have noticed it because at that time he sped up very noticeably in his car. I followed him as far as I could with the video camera over to the church where he sat and watched the lights also.
There goes the sheriff. After sitting here for a few minutes. And here he's facing one. How about that? Got sheriff sitting right under one. Check this out, Ronnie. Sheriff sitting right in front of him watching him. And I got it all right here on tape. Wow! He's just sitting here too.
And they sit there, they're having like a stare down face off for a couple minutes, and the light is just sitting motionlessly up in the sky. There's no sound. Then all of a sudden the light pulls to the right. The sheriff's taillights change again, and he pulls up and pulls to the right as if he's following it.
I can't believe this. Get the red guy.
You're good.
What happened that night? An attempt was made to locate the officer who was on the video.
Sheriff's gonna follow him. Yep. Ooh, there he goes, chasing him.
But our efforts were futile. We spoke with Lieutenant Wilson of the Claremont County Sheriff's Department, who said he checked into it, and he told us that he had no information and no reports were made. Lights in the night sky don't impress me, he said, and that our job is protecting people. As long as one of these bad boys don't hurt anyone, it's not our concern. When asked to make an on-camera comment about the videotape, Claremont County Sheriff John Van Camp abruptly stepped in and curtly said, "Go find someplace else to film."
I don't understand the purpose of them being quiet about this. I believe that people want to know what's going on, and this holding back information is not fair to the public. I was so excited. The very next morning I got up and I called Channel 12 News and I asked them if they had any reports of anything unusual the night before. They said that the only thing they had was a report of freight planes unable to land at Wilmington Airport. Well, I'm quite a bit of a distance away from Wilmington, and these were not freight planes. So then I called Channel 5. I talked to a man there, and as soon as I told him about the video camera, the tape, he laughed at me. And he made me feel so foolish that, it just really upset me. So I still kept persuading him into listening to me about this videotape. And when I called him back the second time, they were not interested at all. I think that they were very unfair to the public. They're supposed to be out there reporting the news for the area. They did not report what happened on, November 10th. And that was a very intense night. It was not just myself that saw it, my son saw it. There were several neighbors that saw it. And that is late-breaking news. I believe that that's more important than, a lot of the other stuff that they're putting on. And they're just not reporting the things that are important to the public. The public needs to know about this.
Boy, you frightened me.
Weird lights in the night sky can't prove anything, so the phenomena lives on. Are these simply mistaken airplane lights? Or something truly unidentified? Who knows? The video is interesting, but we have no answers.
Well, I talked with Barb several times, and according to her, this is a regular event in that area, and there's a lot of sightings of this nature that happen out there. So there's not much to say, but one thing I could add is that were it not for us bringing this tape out, nobody else would, because the news media, channels 5, 9, and 12, Barb says she made a concerted effort to contact them about this and get this tape to them. They were flagrantly not interested in this tape. They wanted no part of covering a story of this nature.
Well, thanks, Kenny. We know that already. We hear their comments at the end of the news every night. Terry, you looked at the video, and that's part of your job, too, with Ask, along with some other things you want to...
Well, I thought it was important to get out there during the daytime and take a look at the overall layout of the scene. What struck me was that during some segments of that videotape, the object appears very low, especially when it's behind the dumpster. If you can recall what that looked like, it was that sort of fenced-in, squared area towards the center of the screen. Visually, in the daytime, it's rather striking because at about the same height that we see the bright light, it's about halfway down a stand of trees. The trees themselves stand about 30, 40 feet tall, no more than 600 feet from the camera perspective. And it struck me that we should be seeing, as the object moves back and forth, some kind of indication that's behind the trees by some obscuring of the light by branches or trunks. And it's hard to see that. Now, part of the problem is the quality of the film isn't all that good. The autofocus was going in and out, so we constantly lose continuity of the film. And so we really don't know, we don't have enough continuous footage to know whether or not it was going behind the trees. If not, it's relatively close and relatively small. Now, Jerry has had the video analyzed as best as can be, and like most videos and photographs of lights in the sky, there's not a whole lot of information there. It's either light or black, and you can't find any kind of background information on it.
Well, in fact, we get a lot of this type of, well, we've had several films like this, Jerry, and we've talked to, I know you've talked to people, especially up at the Air Freight Company in Wilmington, about the flight patterns, and we've been of the opinion in many cases that they were airplanes. You want to tell the folks what type of airplanes and what?
Well, and working in conjunction with Charles Stewart and Kenny Young here, I've called up the Airborne Express in Wilmington, Ohio, that has an airport there strictly for that purpose. And they fly anywhere from 60 to 100 planes a night, anywhere from between Monday and Fridays, from 10:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. So I'm very confident that we can explain some of the sightings, a numerous amount of the sightings, in fact, in the last 3 or 4 years to these planes. Not only that, but the Greater Cincinnati Airport and Dayton Airport also fly Emory Express out and DH&L Express out. So at any given time, we could have numerous planes in this area. In fact, last Thursday night, there were numerous planes in the area, again, that were showing their brilliant, bright white lights as they came towards you. And in fact, I even got a call at 1:30 in the morning on that. So I think really we have answered a majority of these lights in the sky in the last 3 or 4 years, not particularly this tape here, but the majority of lights. We do have a caller panel. Richard, what is your question for UFO Update?
Hello, Richard?
Yes.
What is your question, sir?
The question is on the viewer. I work out in Claremont County. And since all this activity's been going on, the one thing I urge everyone to do that is in this area is not, I repeat, not to contact any of the news media, but to do the proper research that's available. And what I've done is I've got, through purchases, night vision systems that can be mounted on the cameras and things of this nature. In the case of Barb, what I would have done was I would have had the proper equipment set up and filmed not only the cruiser, but also the light and the system. And that as they moved away, I would have relocated to a mobile source of a car or something like that, and then I would have tracked people down, and I would have followed the cruiser directly back to the station, and then I would have taken a picture of the police officer and things of this nature, and just say I was just out shooting some photos and stuff like that, and I wanted to ask you a question about some police science. My daughter or son was taken in school, and completely ignored the fact. And then I would have had all that information together and had my homework done properly.
Well, Richard, let me just say that the problem you have here is that these videos, and we have a number of them, come to us after the fact. And in fact, we go out and we've spent, in teams, we have other people, to do exactly what you've talked about.
Exactly.
So when airplanes these sightings have come up, generally we found them to be airplanes, and all the things that you have suggested become unnecessary.
Well, the thing that amazes me, has anybody there purchased a night vision system and seen and observed the lights with a telescopic lens on a night vision system? Say the third generation.
No one on the stage has,
Yeah, no
but
one
we
on
have
the panel.
people that have done that, yes.
And I would suspect that the military or our government would have that kind of equipment, and we can speculate that they in fact have used it for that reason.
As a matter of fact,
we also have access to that since the Russian.
Right.
Right, the
we have
Russian
the third
equipment's
generation.
relatively inexpensive. Correct.
It runs under $1,000.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, you get a full detailed view of exactly. You don't only see a light, but you see everything around it.
Well, there are arrangements being made, Richard, to revisit the scene. We're going to try to find out some information on what night would be a good night to go back, because as you heard the lady say, that these are a very recurring situation.
Does she record the days?
Well, it's recorded automatically on her film, Richard.
I know it said November the 10th.
Yeah, she did. She is recording all the information. So far, she hasn't come up with anything recently.
If you're asking, we've correlated some of these dates, and they are on high-traffic air freight nights. And we know the types of aircraft.
Did you notice the days, the numbers? Like this was November
that was
the 10th.
That was Thursday. Yeah. November the 10th was a Thursday evening or Friday morning.
Thursday is a high-traffic night for these particular flights.
Yeah, in fact, as Jerry had found out...
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the big nights.
Right, and as Jerry had found out, within the last 3 years, the traffic has increased.
Right.
So that's why attention might be, caught by these things now, because there's a higher incidence of traffic.
Richard, they have tripled their business in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's the reason I think this is happening.
Richard, if you're interested, we have something that's been an ongoing event that's been occurring, and we're waiting for a phone call on that. Now, we don't have ready access to night vision equipment. If you want to give me a call, my number will be on at the end of the show. Be happy to invite you to come along. This is something that's happened repeatedly. Now, I have yet to receive a call. It went on for several months in the spring of '93 and the spring of '94, and in the fall, or the winter, I believe it was. So we're probably going out on that investigation sometime in the future if we get a call. I mean, if it stays true to form and comes back.
Well, the thing that I need to address, everyone, is that you need to really get the acts, everybody in line correctly, and do the proper approach and research with this in a significant manner. I mean, we're shooting this stuff with a standard video camera. That's not good enough. You need power zoom lens.
We realize that, and you realize that, but I think you missed. The problem is, when we get there, the event is over.
Right.
And we're getting the film from these folks after the event's over. And when we go to stake the place out, we don't see what they see, or it doesn't happen. Now, we've had a number of close encounter type sightings where it's been low overhead, according to witnesses, shined a light, big as a house, a couple of daylight, multiple sightings and things like that. But, it's like we get there when the fire's already out. So it's not the kind of thing that if we could have the best equipment in the world at this point in time, it wouldn't help us in terms of filming it, because we're not, even though we go out and stake it out and send teams out. I think on this particular investigation, we've been out there, I don't know, half a dozen times at minimum, plus there's been other people stop out, and we've, similar cases like that. So
I want to thank you for your call, Richard. Your points are well taken.
Thank you.
Peggy, I want you to tell the audience about your support group and give them a date on when the next meeting's coming up and what's been going on with the support group, okay? The support group is going to be meeting on January 17th. That's Tuesday at the Milford Library. And how many people have been coming, Peggy, and what do we expect this next time?
We average roughly 15 to 20 people, and there are people who feel that they very seriously either had an encounter, a time loss, or what they now are referring to as bedroom experience. So it's a group of people who can exchange thoughts about what's happened to them without feeling that someone's going to ridicule them.
Right.
And the reason I didn't know the date is Jerry usually confirms it with the library, and I guess he forgot. He didn't even tell me when the next date was.
Well, I apologize for that, but January 17th is the date, at 6:30 to 8:45 at the Milford Library. We appreciate it if anyone has the opportunity to be there and express their sighting to the rest of the group. Talking about this gentleman here, Pat, brings up an interesting point to call. He talked about the specialized camera and things. Sometimes people don't realize the length of the investigation goes on, or the expense involved. We're not going to go into it tonight, but a Gulf Breeze case that we investigated took thousands of dollars and 3.5 years worth of time. So the people out there have to understand these are not just situations where you can just snap your fingers and the money's there and the cameras are there.
Just to tell people, here's another investigation. It's the Travis Walton. If you saw the Travis Walton movie, look at the end. Jerry Black did almost all this. re-administered lie detector tests, talked to all the witnesses. Again, thousands of dollars and man-hours were spent on it. Brian's got enormous amounts of freedom of information we didn't get to tonight, that not only do we examine these things, but we have correlations with satellites. We go to that extreme, and we do have correlations with UFO sightings and the satellite system. We have time for one more call.
Well,
trying to get
before we get to that call, Terry, I want you to get your report on your newsletter in quickly.
We're expanding the newsletter. We've had excellent response from viewers, but I urge you, if you want information, give us a call, or the address will be on the credits. We really need your support. So give us a shot, because this is good information. It's put together by the Associates for Scientific Knowledge, and we try our best to make sure it's the best and best research data we can get you.
And we've talked to the people on whoever it is, we've talked to them, and there's someone that specializes in that area. If you didn't see it tonight, I assure you they're in the group somewhere.
So watch for Pat's number now at the end of the show, so anyone out there interested in knowing more about ASK and what they can do, please watch for that number. Rob, you're on UFO Update Live. Quickly, your question.
Okay, well, it's not really a question. It's a comment having to do with the sightings in Owensville. For the past, my fiance now, she lived out towards Stone Lake. Over the 3 years I've known her, I've seen a few weird things around there, but when I met her, before I even mentioned, I had a slight interest in UFOs, but nothing major. She told me about sightings of stuff similar to what the woman's seen in Owensville, sometimes low flying. One day we were out driving during the day, the only time I've seen something unexplained in the daytime. It wasn't a plane. It looked sort of like a rotorless helicopter. We tried to follow it. It was going up 28 towards Blanchester. It was metallic, and it was traveling very fast. I was on a side road. I jumped out on 28 trying to follow it as fast as I could, and it was just nowhere, because we got out into just a nice flat area. If you're familiar with the area on 28, it's just fields, and there was nothing for miles, just absolutely nothing. And a couple of my friends have ridiculed me for stuff I've seen. One night we're driving out, and I seen a light off to my right, and then the light got kind of bright and then dimmed down to just a red ball, and it was just real low over the right over the treetops, and then I'm trying to keep it on the road, and then just disappeared. I looked on the road and looked up, and it was gone.
I want to thank you very much for your call, Rob. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
And please get back in touch with us and watch the numbers at the end of the show.
Okay, I'll take it.
I want to thank everyone tonight for watching UFO Update Live. Thank you, panel, for all your input. Our sincerest sympathy to the Leonard Stringfield and his family. And please watch for us again on Access UFO Live. February the 2nd, we'll be back with another show. So be sure and catch us February the 2nd, 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the evening, okay? We have another dramatic show on UFOs for you at that time. So from all of us here on the show to all of you out there, may all your encounters be good ones. Thank you.